Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Proclaim Live on either Facebook or YouTube. I am here with another guest from Proclaim, Krista Greig from Christ the Redeemer in West Vancouver. Krista, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Eric. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm going to apologize in advance. I can hear my kids downstairs, and they're having fun in the house, I got to say. And so I will find out whether or not our house is still standing at the end of all of this. But apologies in advance if you hear any of the noise. But Krista, we're here. We're live. I want to welcome some of our viewers as you jump on. Hi, Josh. Thanks for commenting. And we're live both on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you have any questions for us as we have our conversation, please feel free to throw them in the comments, and we'll see if we can address any questions. But I'm so excited to hear a little bit of Krista's story, her some subtle mashing. Oh, I'm seeing the comments. Krista's story of faith and her involvement at Christ the Redeemer. I think what they're doing at that parish is phenomenal, and there's so much more potential and opportunity for mission just based on what I'm hearing and seeing so far. So enough about me talking and a little more of Krista sharing. Krista, can you share with us a little bit of your faith journey?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a Catholic family, but the extent of our faith was kind of just going to Mass on Sundays. I did go to Catholic school, and that was kind of where I started to care about my faith. In about grade 10, when we were learning about morality and theology, that really kind of spoke to me, and that was kind of how I came to accept Catholicism as something that I wanted to care about. So from there, I became involved in youth ministry at my parish. I started going to youth group with a friend at her church, which was kind of my first experience of accompaniment and small groups. But yeah, so I was living this Catholic life, practicing my faith, but I didn't really get the opportunity to choose Jesus until university. I encountered CCO at my university through a friend who told me to go find this CCO missionary, and I was like, what does that mean? But spoke to them. She shared the You Are With Me, the Ultimate Relationship booklet. And yeah, I had just never heard the concept of a relationship with Jesus in that way before. And so I was able to choose to place him at the center of my life. So that was kind of, I guess, my conversion. And since then, have just, continued to have encounters with him and continue to grow in faith through various different things.
That's pretty cool. So when you were introduced to the concept of personal relationship with Jesus and invited to make a decision, was it an easy decision for you, or was it wrestling in your mind and in your heart? How did that go?
Honestly, for me, it was an easy decision. As I was going through the UR, I was honestly a little bit, I was like, I kind of know this already, but I was, going along with it because I figured it was something CCO did. But then they got to the part about the relationships diagram, and that was kind of where I was like, oh, wait, I haven't actually made this decision. I just kind of started growing in faith and doing all these things because I love Jesus, but I never said that and never made the commitment. So it wasn't difficult, but it was surprising, I guess, that I never done it.
Okay. So you were given the gift of faith to know and love God and to know and love Jesus. And when presented with the ultimate relationship with it, which is kind of just a clear presentation and a particular way of responding, it was almost like, this makes a lot of sense, and I'm going to say yes to this. Yeah. Okay, cool. Very cool. So now you work at Christ the Redeemer Parish, correct? And how long have you been there for?
So I've been there a little bit over a year now. I was doing youth ministry and prep for the past year, and now I've moved on to a new role, doing engagement and evangelization.
Engagement and evangelization. Okay, so it sounds very much in line with the Proclaim movement in evangelizing, and as well as helping people participate in the mission of proclaiming Jesus. So Krista, I'm wondering if you could, in your own words, share with us what you think of the term missionary disciple.
I think when I first heard it, it was kind of scary because I think people sometimes have preconceived notions of what it means to be a missionary or be missionary. And And yeah, but I think ultimately as you learn more about it and kind of delve into it, it's really just someone who has encountered Jesus and wants to bring him to others, and who recognizes this as part of their baptismal calling. And I think that that preconceived notion of what a missionary might be, like we each do this, we are each missionary in different ways, and the way that I do it is not going to look the same as the way you do it, because we all have different gifts and different strengths. So I think that recognizing that we each have that ability.
You reminded me of the Evangelii Gaudium paragraph that I think Josh Canning had referred to earlier this week, or perhaps last week, where he referenced Pope Francis saying, everyone is a missionary to the extent that they have encountered the love of Jesus, and that we don't need lengthy training or formation to go out. And he references the story of the Samaritan woman at the well, who, after encountering one time, goes back to her city to share who she encountered. So that's wonderful. And of course, you're right, because of all the different people we encounter, their stories, the context, the parish culture, we have to be ready and adaptable to share Jesus in a way that's meaningful and relevant. So I love that you're thinking that way. Yeah. So let's go back to your work at Christ the Redeemer. You've been there for about a year or so, and you've taken a few different roles. And I'm sure, like with any parish, all kinds of different things come up. And sometimes you find yourself in responsibilities that may not necessarily fall under your job description, but certainly it requires some of your time and urgency, especially with COVID and all of the different things that have come into play. So as you think back to the time that you've been able to serve at the parish, tell us about something that's been just a highlight, a joy for you.
I think one of the main things that stands out for me in the past year has been working with the parish core team. And specifically, we were working on putting together an event for parish leaders. And I remember that this was I think this was last September, so I was like a little bit into the role, but I was still kind of, focused on youth ministry and prep. And I remember we were going down a certain path, and I spoke up and I was like, I don't think that we should go this way. And so that was kind of a moment where I was like, I guess, affirmed in my ability to do something. So we then took this event a different direction, and it was kind of a day of formation for these missionary leaders in our parish of talking about testimony and shared prayer. And so to just see that day come together, and each member of the core team using their strengths to present these topics. And then once we actually presented this day, to see the parish leaders be so inspired and invigorated to continue the mission. That's still one of the days that I think back to and think about how we can continue building off of it.
Okay, that's wonderful. Being able to see the fruit of the work and that it's impacting lives is always a highlight. Krista, you and I had a quick chat beforehand, and I had mentioned I'm going to try not to kind of go rogue with some of the questions, because I wanted to make sure that we had a meaningful conversation. But I think you said something in there that that I think merits a little bit of a conversation, and that's that moment where, in a sense, you challenge the process. And as leaders and as those who serve our parish, this can be very difficult to do, especially when there's culture and there's expectation, and there's people that we work with where feelings could get hurt, or a host of other kinds of kind of reactions. So challenging the process can be a little bit intimidating. And I want to affirm you for doing that and seeing something. And of course, you saw the fruit. But how does that, like, what's going on for you when you see something and you want to challenge the process? And do you experience some of the things I mentioned, or is it pretty easy for you to kind of say, I think we should take it in a different direction?
It's pretty challenging for me. I'm not I kind of shy away from conflict, but it's something that I've learned in working with our core team. Like, I've become comfortable in conflict among that team. And then I think what I have to realize is every time that something is challenged, it's not challenged because it's a bad idea or it's we're trying to, rain on someone's parade. It's challenged
Right.
because we see an opportunity for growth and an opportunity for something even greater to come out of it. And so I think that we would be doing a disservice to the parish and to the ministry and to the work if we weren't to speak up for something that we maybe see from a different angle or see could be taken in a different direction.
And I know that Christ the Redeemer has a very clear mission statement and a pathway for discipleship formation and growth. And when everyone knows the big picture and they know the vision and the mission that needs to be accomplished, then challenging the process has a certain place and clarity, because you're inviting and saying, we could do this better, or I think, we might need to pivot a little bit. And I think as well with COVID-19 at this, in this sort of junction within the parish life, we're invited to challenge the process, whether we like it or not. And so, yeah, I just want to affirm you and say, good for you for taking the opportunity to do that. And when we challenge the process, we certainly grow, not only in our own leadership, but in the relationships with those we are with, and we learn a lot. So, we learn a lot. So, could you tell us a little bit of like what might be, what's been challenging for you?
I think, so conflict, obviously, for me personally, just because, I don't love having those tough conversations, but I think tying into that is that everyone has a different idea of what evangelization is supposed to look like. And so, like you said, challenging kind of what the norm is. And there's obviously like a parish culture that we're trying to shift for the better towards evangelization and towards discipleship. And so everyone has a different thought of how that should look. So it's challenging just to navigate and to try to take people's opinions and people's thoughts and people's convictions and to work with those and see how we can either implement them or adapt them. Okay. So what does evangelization look like at CTR? Or what would you like evangelization to look like at CTR? It's honestly, I was like, not to toot our own horn, but I would say that evangelization is, I think, strong at our parish, more so than maybe parishes I've been a parishioner at before. Like, I haven't been at CTR my whole life. And so it's really interesting because I have done a lot of growing in this parish, and this was kind of the parish I became a part of with youth ministry. But to now be in this and to go to other parishes and say, they don't have Alpha, they don't have faith studies. Those have been kind of the two things in our parish that really stick out as evangelization tools, and really trying to create a culture around them. So I think for us, Alpha is starting to reach a tipping point where they say Alpha kind of starts with the people who are already in the parish. So parishioners, Catholics already going before it gets into a place of being invitational. And I think we're starting to get there. So I think that evangelization, that's our main community for evangelization.
Okay. I see Josh has asked a question. What has been tough about transitioning good programs, liturgy and communication, etc., during COVID?
Like transitioning online and or adapting, I guess. I think the hardest part has been determining what it is that people need, and what they want. In terms of logistics of moving things online, like that's been, I would say, an easier part. Thanks to Zoom, thanks to social media. Faith studies are continuing online. We're going to launch Alpha online here soon. But it's been mostly like, do people want to do faith studies online? Do people want music online? Like, what do they want? And for us, like, I'm still serving in youth ministry, and I've found it easier in that sense because we can just ask the teens what they want. But with the whole parish, how do you communicate with over 250 families of what they need and want? That's been the hard part. And with youth and teens, they're a lot more adaptable. They're a lot more comfortable being online. They're already there. So in a certain sense, they actually do know what they want. In some cases with other families, different generations,
they know what they want, but they may not necessarily know what they want as presented online, or what what it looks like for us during this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our parish is a bit of an older demographic as well, so I think that that's an interesting consideration. And actually, like, a lot of our parishioners have been able to learn the online stuff. Even Monsignor has said that, but it's also, it's interesting to reach all the different demographics that we have and see what each different group needs.
Yeah. Okay. I've been following CTR a little bit over the years, and have certainly seen some of the fruit of Alpha, as you've mentioned. Could you share with us a story or two of how you've seen fruit through Alpha?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen for Alpha, and I guess disclaimer is that I haven't actually been involved in Alpha for the parish. I've done youth Alpha, and then I've been involved with faith studies. So I've kind of just Alpha, my experience with it has been what I've heard from the core team and from parishioners. But what it sounds like and what it looks like is happening is people are stepping up into leadership, and Alpha has kind of really been an opportunity for people to step into a leadership role in a very non-threatening way. Just asking them to be a table host and lead a discussion that you don't have to have all the answers to. Has really created a culture where people feel that they can step up and serve. So that's been some of the fruit there. And I think also from Alpha, we've had a lot of people move into RCIA. So a lot of people encounter Jesus at Alpha. And,
So non-Catholics, non-Christians coming to Alpha, encountering the community, being welcomed by the parishioners, and also encountering God, and then expressing a desire to continue in the faith journey through RCIA. That's wonderful. Okay. I'm noticing also that you're coordinating evangelization at the parish, which sounds huge and daunting, and yet you've found a role in supporting others doing the work. So not directly doing Alpha, but helping others participate in Alpha. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So we do have a coordinator for Alpha. So it's not just me, and it's also not just her. Like there's so many people that are a part of it, but it's an interesting structure that we have taken at the parish to kind of empower leaders. Okay.
Let's talk about the faith studies, the CCO faith studies in particular. I know that's a big part of CTR's evangelization and discipleship process. And Proclaim has been using both the tools of Alpha and the faith studies to help the discipleship process and evangelization. And so a lot of our viewers are either thinking about using it or are using it in a particular way. But share with us how CTR and how you use the faith studies and where you've seen fruit.
So faith studies, I don't even remember when they began at the parish, but they've been around for a little bit. But it's only been the past couple of years that we've started really, I guess not formalizing it, but making it a part of our discipleship pathway at the parish. So there's really been a push and an encouragement for all parishioners to have the experience of Alpha and discovery. And so, we've had a lot of people be going through discovery. It's very interesting to see how people continue along. Some people continue with their group. Some people take discovery and then want to lead a group in discovery. It's a great way for people to feel connected because they've shared a common experience and have that common foundation. Okay, very cool. We've got a few minutes left, and I would love to take some time to talk about CTR's discipleship pathway. And we've heard this term before. I know I had Julia Hanley from St. Patrick's in Maple Ridge come on and share a little bit of their pathway. And I see the term pathway on a variety of different evangelization forums, and CTR has a pathway. And I know you've been a part of developing and will be responsible to help moving and using the pathway. So could you share with us the pathway that CTR is using? Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned Julia and St. Patrick's Pathway, because we kind of took your guys' pathway and adapted it for ourselves. But yeah, we originally began with a discipleship pathway that was built around Sherry Waddell and CCO terms of trust, curiosity, seeking, those sorts of steps. But when we saw the St. Patrick's Pathway and the fact that it was an invitation to something, and it wasn't programs based. It was based around people and around their journey. That was something we took and went with as well, and figured out how we could adapt it to us. So we start with an invitation to community, and that's where Alpha happens.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like summer barbecues, socials, that sort of thing. Any touch point people have with the community that's kind of non-threatening and invitational. And then we added in an invitation to explore. So we had found that some people after Alpha weren't quite ready for RCIA or Discovery.
Okay.
And so we added this step to see how we could accompany people to get to that point.
Okay.
So we had created a program called Beta, or a Connect group called Beta, to kind of be an in-between. That hasn't happened yet because last round, all those people that would have been in Beta actually went to RCIA. So they were ready to go. But and then inviting people into relationship with Jesus, which is the vital step. And from there into continued growth, and then leadership, and multiplication.
Okay. So far as you've looked at that pathway and have seen the activity of the parish, where would you say along the pathway would you find which part of the pathway would you find most challenging?
I think the invitation to growth can be challenging, or that phase, just because I think it's where people can get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And so the step between invitation to growth and invitation to leadership, it's that challenging people to take the next step and to go a little bit further, and to switch the mindset from being fed to feeding others.
Right. Okay.
So that's kind of the challenging step to take.
Okay. That invitation to growth. It's like in that moment, or somewhere in that moment, there'll be an invitation to go to look outward and not just to look inward. So you could end up having people cycle in that space and not necessarily move forward. I can see that for sure. Okay. Let's go with one more question, and I'm going to throw it back to our viewers. If our viewers have any additional questions to ask Krista with regards to parish life, culture, evangelization, mission, anything like that. But if you were to, when you consider yourself as a missionary disciple, and the skills that you've developed so far, and perhaps even the skills that you can see that you might need, what might be one missionary disciple skill that you would love to sharpen?
I think the big one for me would be spiritual conversation.
Spiritual conversations.
And just boldness in that. I'm not kind of naturally a conversationalist. I'm more introverted, not very good with small talk. So I think that it's difficult for me to figure out how to progress a conversation just from casual conversation to something a little bit deeper, and to do that smoothly and effectively.
Okay. So let's take a situation. You're in the parking lot. Let's say you meet a new parent, or you meet someone that's like an unfamiliar face. You start the conversation. You're kind of wondering where are you from, and are you new here, and all that. And you're I guess the piece that you're wondering is the transition towards conversations about faith. Is that?
Yeah, and I think it's easier if it's in a parish context, like if I was to see someone in the church parking lot. But kind of the thought of if I'm speaking with friends, or in previous jobs that I've had, speaking with coworkers about faith, like how do I make the transition from the casual, oh, you're Catholic, to, hey, like, do you want to come to Alpha, even, like, to that sort of step.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm thinking now in my own context, it's that moment where I'm outside with the kids and a neighbor comes out and we're having a conversation, and how do I move the conversation from, the weather or complaining about something in our yard to, what do you think about God? And do you have a faith background or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. To our viewers, if you've got any thoughts on spiritual conversations or any questions, feel free to throw it our way, and perhaps we could, kind of stick to that for a little bit and see. Yeah, I find that pretty difficult too. I do remember a number of times where I've tried to transition the conversation, and it just becomes almost awkward, or it halts the conversation. So for whatever reason, people just aren't willing to talk about faith personally.
Yeah.
That one's tough.
I think I find it hard to actively do. It just tends to happen to me, and then I can handle it. But the initial transition from talking about whatever to talking about faith is the hard part.
Yeah. So that's something we can ask the Holy Spirit for this weekend at Pentecost. That a special gift, the gift of gab.
Yes.
That could lead to intentional conversations. That could lead to an invitation to Alpha, or to relationship with Jesus. Okay, Krista, we've still got a few more minutes, and I want to throw out a blanketed question. If there was something that you could say to Proclaim as a word of encouragement, or really anything, what would you like to share with Proclaim?
I think I've seen a lot of people wondering about, faith studies, wondering about Alpha, and how they can bring that to their parish. I would say, do it. It's probably easier than you think it is to do. Again, I can speak more for the faith studies, but all it takes is, a handful of leaders. All it takes is one leader to start who's trained and who can lead a group, to then form people to also lead their own groups. And it's just been really, like, in my commission group the other day that I'm leading, one of the ladies said, wow, like, this faith study series is so Holy Spirit inspired.
Right.
And it's amazing how it just, when you're in commission, it comes back full circle to discovery.
Right.
So it's just a beautiful series. And I think that there's so much opportunity there to bring it to a parish, and it's so easy to do. It doesn't even need to be through your parish. Like, you can do it with a group of friends. Easy to start.
Yeah, this is where the invitation to be missionary disciples by virtue of our baptism, by in a personal context, comes to light. When our parishes are spending a lot of its time and energy, and rightfully so, towards adapting and adjusting to these new times, whether it's in live streaming or figuring out how to open up the church doors to limited congregations and registration and screening and all of that stuff. And those things are vital and important for the life of the parish. I think pastors can, in a certain sense, drop their shoulders and say, I've got lay people, missionary disciples, who are engaging in the mission. So for those parishes that are doing it formally, like CTR, wonderful. And I think your parish is strong because you also have missionary disciples that are engaged in the mission. It's almost like if the parish didn't do it, your parishioners would still find a way to proclaim Jesus. And so for those parishes that, or for those of you who are in parishes where you may be looking at the parish and wondering, like, what's my parish doing when it comes to mission? I'd say, I think every parish has limited resources, time, and there's a lot of challenges, and they might be working on donations or working on other things that are important to the life of the parish. I think the invitation that you've shared with us here, and I think the encouragement and challenge, is to consider, where in my own life could I be a missionary disciple, whether it is in the parish or whether it's outside of the parish. As St. Paul says, all that matters is that Jesus is proclaimed, and that is what brings us joy. So, Well, Krista, thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit of your story and a little bit of what you've been involved in at CTR. I'm so encouraged by your work, and by the work of the parish. And I've said this in a few other, Facebook Lives and different places. I am so encouraged to see young adults taking leadership in the parish life when it comes to evangelization and discipleship. Julia was on here, and I know both of you have had conversations, and I think you're similar in age, young adults. So it's wonderful to see that we have leaders that can accompany others and challenge the process and continue growing in their experience of bringing people to Jesus. So thank you so much, Krista, for joining us. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us, whether it's live or recorded. I know we keep this online for those who watch later. I will close by just saying we are still on our road to Pentecost, so feel free to join us on Instagram in the morning at 9 or at 9 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube for our novena prayer. And this weekend, we're collaborating with the virtual parish young adult community and with Vocations Vancouver to put together a prayer vigil as we prepare for the great feast of Pentecost. And I invite you to ask for an extravagant gift from the Holy Spirit to empower you in your mission to proclaim Jesus in your proximate periphery, and allow for Pentecost to be a moment for you as we celebrate the church's birthday, but we are also sent out to go and make disciples. So thank you again, Krista, and thank you to our viewers. Thank you to Proclaim, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.